Imagine this. You wake up in a house that you built, brick by brick, wall by wall, room by room. It's elegant, efficient, full of light. But something's wrong. The walls breathe when they shouldn't. The floor beneath your feet hums with a low frequency, imperceptible to everyone else, but it pulses in your bones. Every time you walk through your pristine, carefully curated space, you feel a sensation you can't name, a soft, invisible pressure around your chest. Nothing is chasing you. Nothing is broken, and yet you can't breathe. What if the cage you're suffocating in was designed to feel like safety? What if your constant anxiety wasn't a flaw in your brain, but the inevitable reaction of a soul imprisoned inside the very systems it was told would set it free? You're not being chased by lions. There's no famine in your fridge, no war zone in your backyard. And still, your nervous system is locked in a loop, pulsing with quiet panic at 3 a.m., scrolling endlessly through curated lives, half choking on comparisons you never consented to make. Why? This is the paradox of the age. Humanity has never been more technologically advanced, materially comfortable, or medically secure. And yet the levels of anxiety are not only rising, they are skyrocketing. Not in war-torn regions, not in survival zones, but in the bright, bustling centers of modern civilization. The places where food is delivered in 10 minutes and dopamine is a thumb swipe away. You are safe, but you feel hunted. You are connected, but you feel isolated. You are free, but you feel trapped. Why? You were told that if you worked hard, followed the rules, stayed productive, optimized, spiritualized, socialized, digitized, then peace would arrive. That peace is now on backorder, indefinitely delayed, like the purpose you keep deferring for someday when you've earned it. And still the anxiety builds, quietly, shamefully, like a leak in the basement of your psyche that you don't want anyone to see. Have you ever stopped to ask, where is this coming from? Why is the modern individual, so powerful in appearance, living under the skin like a hunted animal? Is this anxiety a personal malfunction, or a mirror reflecting something darker, something systemic, something profoundly wrong with the fabric of modern life? Could it be that the very structure of your daily existence, the algorithms, the expectations, the way you measure success, beauty, identity, is not just inadequate but actually hostile to the human soul? Carl Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." But what if it's not just avoidance? What if we've built an entire civilization designed to distract us from that confrontation? A world that glorifies endless productivity and endless consumption, but makes no room for the silent, stormy landscapes of the psyche. And here's the cruel irony. The further we drift from our inner life, the dreams, the fears, the traumas, the archetypes clawing for attention beneath our curated personas, the more the anxiety tightens. Like a phantom limb, your true self keeps reaching for a reality that no longer exists. Could it be that your anxiety isn't the enemy, but the signal? The cracked bell in the tower that rings to say, something here is not right. But what is it? Is it the loss of meaning in a world of surface-level rewards? Is it the disconnection from tribe, myth, and shared ritual in favor of hyper-individualism and sterile productivity? Is it the unending chase for optimization that leaves no room for being? Or is it something deeper, something ancient, something spiritual that cannot be medicated, gamified, or quantified? Ask yourself, why is your body screaming in a world that promises peace? Why does your chest tighten in rooms filled with light? Why does the scroll never satisfy, the achievement never fulfill, the rest never arrive? What if the rising tide of anxiety isn't a plague, but a prophecy? What if it's not your mind that's broken, but the environment it's being forced to adapt to? And what if the answer doesn't lie in suppressing the symptom, but in decoding the message? This isn't just stress. This isn't just a mental health epidemic. This is a rupture, a crack in the carefully polished mirror of modern life. And through that crack, something is trying to speak to you. Something ancient. Something wild. Something true. But to hear it, you must be willing to turn away from the noise, the notifications, the neon glow of manufactured distraction, and face the one question that changes everything. What if your anxiety is the most honest part of you? To understand what that means, we must go deeper, into the very roots of your mind, your myth, and the machinery that surrounds them. Shall we? You were born into a world that already had a story written for you. Before you spoke your first word, society whispered a script into your subconscious. What to desire, what to fear, who to become, and what to bury deep enough that no one, not even you, could find it. This story wasn't authored by your soul. It was assembled, stitched together by generations of inherited wounds, industrial priorities, market logic, and cultural illusions. And yet you live as though that story is yours. But something doesn't fit. Something tightens each time you try to force yourself into the mold. That tightening has a name: anxiety. To understand why anxiety is no longer just a symptom, but a baseline for modern life, we must look beyond chemical imbalances and stress management. We must go to the root, to the psychological and philosophical distortions embedded in how we define life itself. Let's start with a cruel twist of consciousness. You are the only species that can imagine infinite futures, infinite versions of yourself, and simultaneously feel the unbearable pressure of choosing correctly. Jean-Paul Sartre called this condemned freedom. You are free, radically so, but this freedom doesn't liberate you. It paralyzes you. The modern world magnifies this freedom by offering endless options: career paths, belief systems, aesthetic identities, even digital selves. But with no shared map of meaning, each decision becomes a referendum on your worth. Every choice you don't make becomes a life you failed to live. No wonder your chest is tight. You've been given godlike freedom without the mythic guidance to bear it. Meanwhile, you are told to always be yourself, while simultaneously being bombarded with messages that who you are is not enough. Every scroll reveals someone more attractive, more accomplished, more at peace, polished fragments of lives designed to manipulate your nervous system. And though your mind knows it's curated, your body doesn't. Your limbic system, a primal structure evolved to respond to real danger, is hijacked by pixels and fantasies. This isn't accidental. As Aldous Huxley warned in Brave New World, the new control isn't tyranny through fear, but sedation through distraction. We are not oppressed by boots. We are tranquilized by indulgence. Pleasure becomes the new prison. Comfort becomes the coffin. You no longer need chains when the cage is filled with shiny things. You are sold dopamine as salvation. Yet this artificial flood leaves you malnourished, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally. Because underneath it all, your psyche is still calling out for depth, for initiation, for meaning. And when that cry is ignored, it twists inward. It becomes panic. This is where Carl Jung's insights burn like truth, etched into bone. Jung believed that the psyche is composed not only of the conscious self, the persona you present to the world, but also of the vast, chaotic, powerful unconscious. Within this unconscious lies what Jung called the shadow, the parts of yourself you were told not to feel, not to express, not to be. The rage, the sorrow, the envy, the primal hunger for truth, love, and destruction. In a society obsessed with control and perfection, the shadow is exiled. But it does not disappear. It waits, and then it whispers, through anxiety, depression, compulsive behavior. It whispers in your dreams, your panic attacks, your irrational fears. It whispers until it screams. Jung warned that a person who refuses to make contact with their unconscious will be fated to project it outward, onto others, onto life itself. What you refuse to face within will appear to you as fate, as crisis, as unending anxiety. So ask yourself, what have you disowned in order to be accepted? What fire did you extinguish to be normal? What grief did you swallow to keep functioning? What truths did you betray to remain loved? Arthur Schopenhauer believed that to live is to suffer, and that much of our suffering comes not from pain itself, but from insatiable desire. Modernity runs on this hunger. The entire economy depends on you believing that happiness is always one purchase, one achievement, one transformation away. But the finish line moves every time you get close. The carrot gets shinier, the stick more invisible, and you chase, and you chase, and you chase. Anxiety, in this context, becomes the residue of a life lived in pursuit of illusions. You are not allowed to rest, not truly, because rest implies you are enough. And if you are enough, the system collapses. You must feel incomplete, hungry, slightly broken, forever. And yet this is not sustainable. The human psyche is not a machine. It is a wild, mysterious force, like fire, like ocean, like storm. You cannot package it, brand it, schedule it, and not expect it to erupt. So here we are. An entire culture built on disconnection. Disconnection from self, from body, from nature, from each other. And this disconnection is not an unfortunate side effect. It is the design. Aldous Huxley foresaw this too. He predicted a world where people would come to love their oppression, where no one would need to censor you because you would willingly drown in triviality. And now we have arrived. But your body remembers, your nervous system knows, and it signals, in the form of tension, restlessness, dread, tightness in the chest, and that constant hum beneath your skin. You may call it anxiety, but it is the ancient part of you refusing to go quietly. Refusing to believe this is all there is. Refusing to be sedated. Refusing to forget who you are beneath the noise. Because something within you still knows that this isn't peace, it's paralysis. That this isn't freedom, it's performance. That this isn't safety, it's sedation. And now the question becomes more urgent. If the root cause of your anxiety is this system of illusions, how much longer can you survive inside it? What are the consequences, personal, societal, even existential, of continuing to ignore this signal? To answer that, we must look at what happens when the whisper becomes a roar, and no one listens. Imagine the faint scent of smoke in a sealed room. At first, it's distant, barely detectable. You notice it in passing, tell yourself it's nothing. Then the air thickens, your eyes sting, your lungs tighten. You try to go about your business, emails, groceries, social engagements, but the smoke seeps deeper. You keep functioning, smiling, performing, but deep down, you know, something is burning. This is what chronic anxiety has become for the modern psyche. Not a flicker, not a symptom, but a silent blaze that's filling the atmosphere of everyday life. We don't just feel it individually. We are breathing it collectively. But here's the most disturbing part. We've adapted to it. We've normalized waking up in dread. We joke about burnout. We take pride in being booked and busy. We wear our nervous breakdowns like merit badges of ambition. Our language betrays the sickness, crushing it, killing it. Grind until you shine, as if destruction is the price of worthiness. What happens to a culture that mistakes exhaustion for excellence? What happens to a mind that forgets what calm feels like? This is the first great unseen consequence, the emotional flattening of a civilization. When anxiety becomes the baseline, aliveness fades. Joy turns synthetic, peace feels suspicious, stillness becomes unbearable. The nervous system, built to operate in cycles of activation and rest, is held hostage in a state of constant threat with no visible predator. It's like trying to sleep in a war zone where the bullets are silent and invisible, but real. You were not made for this. Your body is ancient. Your nervous system evolved in landscapes of rhythm and ritual, day and night, feast and fast, noise and silence. But now the rhythm is gone. Only acceleration remains. We do not ask, should I slow down? We ask, how can I optimize better? Enter the second consequence, cognitive fragmentation. Neuroscience confirms what the mystics always knew. Attention is sacred. But in the economy of distraction, your attention is no longer yours. It's harvested, hijacked, monetized. Every app, every feed, every ping is a needle threading through your fragmented awareness, pulling it away from presence and into hyperstimulated disarray. Cognitive overload reduces your ability to regulate emotion. And when you cannot regulate emotion, everything feels like a threat. The traffic, the email, the look on a stranger's face, your own thoughts. And here, anxiety metastasizes. It becomes not just a feeling, but a lens, a way of seeing the world. And through this lens, everything sharpens. Everything glows with low-grade danger. You're no longer just anxious about something, you become anxiety itself. The world stops being something you engage with and starts becoming something you brace against. And then it turns inward. This is the third consequence, the internalization of blame. You begin to think it's you, that something is broken in you, that if you were just more productive, more mindful, more grateful, less sensitive, less lazy, less you, then you wouldn't feel this way. But that's the trap. You are blaming yourself for responding accurately to an environment that is fundamentally misaligned with your humanity. Your anxiety is not dysfunction, it is detection. A finely tuned alarm system screaming that something is fundamentally off in the way we live, relate, work, love, and dream. But society cannot allow that interpretation, because if your anxiety is accurate, then the entire structure must be questioned. So instead, you are fed 1,000 cures that never ask about the cause. Pop a pill, download a meditation app. Breathe deeper, smile more, hustle smarter. Treat the symptom, ignore the system. This is how anxiety becomes institutionalized. Workplaces ignore human rhythms. Schools prioritize obedience over curiosity. Healthcare prescribes pills without listening to pain. Social media replaces connection with performance. Spirituality is repackaged as productivity hacks. Every corner of life is engineered for efficiency, but none for existential nourishment. And so we walk through our days with heads full of knowledge and hearts full of dread. This is the fourth consequence: spiritual starvation. Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, warned that the root of modern distress is not suffering itself, but suffering without meaning. When anxiety rises and no one gives it a name, no one helps you understand it as a messenger, it becomes senseless. It grows in the void left by a culture that amputates meaning from daily life. Without meaning, suffering mutates into despair. And when despair deepens, something dangerous emerges: disconnection. Not just from others, but from yourself. You no longer trust your emotions, you suppress your intuition, you silence your longings, you disconnect from your body, from the land, from your ancestors, from your dreams. You become a ghost in your own life, haunting roles, routines, and relationships that no longer reflect who you are. And what's worse, you call this adulthood. You call this normal. You call this success. But what if success is the most beautiful version of collapse? What if this system is not breaking down, but finally revealing what it has always been: indifferent to your wholeness, allergic to your soul? And this brings us to the most terrifying consequence of all: the erosion of imagination. Because when anxiety becomes chronic, the part of your brain responsible for creativity, hope, and vision begins to shrink, literally. Neuroscience shows that prolonged exposure to stress and fear reduces the size of the hippocampus, the part of the brain essential for memory and future dreaming. Translation: anxiety steals your ability to imagine a different life. And once your imagination is gone, you're no longer a conscious creator. You're a consumer of distractions, a reactor to emergencies, a puppet in a play you no longer remember auditioning for. But here's the thing. Even now, beneath the smoke, beneath the noise, beneath the paralysis, a small spark remains. You feel it when you ache for something more and don't yet have the words. You feel it when your dreams don't die, they just go quiet. You feel it when you wake at 3 a.m. and know deeply that this can't be all there is. That spark is dangerous. To the system, it's dangerous. But to your soul, it's everything. Because that spark holds the beginning of the rebellion. The moment when you stop managing your anxiety and start listening to it. The moment when you stop pathologizing your sensitivity and start honoring its wisdom. But to ignite that spark, you must be willing to walk a path that few dare to follow. A path that requires you to unlearn, to dismantle, to confront the illusions that have defined your reality. That path begins not with a plan, but with defiance. You do not heal by complying with the system that broke you. You do not reclaim peace by further anesthetizing the scream of your soul. And you do not find liberation by perfecting your performance in a world that rewards your obedience, but punishes your authenticity. The first act of rebellion, then, is not loud. It's not protest or argument or rage. It's silence, stillness. Imagine this: you stop. For the first time in months, maybe years, you stop performing, producing, optimizing. You sit in the raw, unfiltered silence of your own being. You turn off the podcasts, the mantras, the productivity planners. You let the noise collapse. And in that sudden quiet, you hear it. A low hum, a buried ache, a voice you've ignored for so long it speaks now only in tremors, but it is yours. The real you. Not the self you invented to please your parents. Not the avatar you curated for social acceptance. Not the achievement-driven shadow desperate to outrun the shame. You. Breaking free begins here, not with a new technique or a 7-step strategy, but with the radical act of remembering yourself. Beneath the programming, beneath the armor, beneath the fear. Carl Jung taught that healing doesn't come from eradicating the shadow, but by integrating it. The parts you disowned, The anger, the hunger, the wildness, the grief are not enemies. They are fragments of your full humanity, exiled by a society that taught you only certain traits were worthy of love. Integration is not polite. It's violent in the way truth is violent. It destroys illusions. To break free, you must stop trying to be good. Stop trying to be liked. Stop trying to be safe. Stop trying to shrink yourself into boxes designed by people who never knew your name. Instead, be whole. Even if it means being messy. Even if it means being misunderstood. Even if it means being alone for a while. That is the cost of your freedom, and it is worth everything. Now understand this. Rebellion is not escapism. It's not about vanishing into the woods, renouncing all technology, or burning every bridge. That would be too easy and too ineffective. The rebellion we speak of is internal, subtle, relentless. It is about reclaiming agency. It begins the moment you realize, I do not have to think the thoughts I was taught to think. You can question the inherited narratives. Who told you productivity equals worth? Who told you your emotions were weaknesses? Who told you anxiety was a malfunction, not a message? Who benefits from your self-rejection? Trace those threads, pull them apart, question everything. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. And what is the modern tribe? It's not a circle of elders. It's a network of algorithms. It's trends and metrics and invisible scripts. It's conformity disguised as convenience. And the danger of this tribe is that it teaches you to doubt your own inner knowing. So here is your task. Rebuild trust in your own perception. When your body says, I am tired, rest. When your soul whispers, this is right, listen. When your anger rises, honor it. It is not the opposite of peace. It is the sign that peace has been violated. This rebellion is deeply personal, but you are not alone. Others have walked this path before you, quietly, fiercely. Viktor Frankl found meaning in a concentration camp. Jung faced visions of apocalypse and drew maps of the unconscious. Dostoevsky, imprisoned and sentenced to death, emerged with the deepest insights into human contradiction. They did not numb the chaos, they descended into it. So must you. This is where philosophy meets action, not in debate halls, but in your daily choices. Radical ideas for modern rebellion. Say no without apology, to things, to people, to tasks that deplete your spirit. Unplug not just occasionally, but regularly. Create space so silence can speak. Reconnect to rhythm, sleep with the sun, eat without screens, walk slowly, breathe deeply. Create for creation's sake. Paint, write, scream, dance, not for an audience, but for yourself. Tell the truth, first to yourself, then to others, even if your voice shakes. Rest as resistance. In a world that runs on burnout, choosing to rest is revolutionary. Choose presence over performance. Put the phone down, look people in the eye, be here now. And perhaps most radical of all, feel. Let the wave of anxiety crash over you without running from it. Let it burn through the numbed layers until you feel something real underneath. Grief, longing, rage, wonder. All of it is sacred, all of it is human. Anxiety is not your enemy, it is your teacher. It is the unhealed child banging on the door asking to be let back into the house. Open it, hold them, listen. The moment you stop resisting, something shifts. The panic softens. The breath returns, not because you've fixed yourself, but because you've returned to yourself. You are no longer a node in the machine. You are no longer a brand. You are a being, wild, wounded, whole. And yes, the world will resist this. Because a soul that no longer fears itself is a dangerous thing. A soul that no longer obeys false idols is unpredictable, uncontrollable, free. This is the rebellion. Not against the world, but for yourself. The moment you stop asking for permission to be who you already are is the moment the architecture of anxiety begins to crumble. And in the ruins, something ancient stirs. A clarity, a knowing, a truth that no system can monetize. You were never broken, only buried. And now you are rising.